Hello, everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of the forum. Our third speaker this afternoon is Ms. Lin Rong Chan. She is a lecturer at the Learning Sciences and Assessment Academic Group, NIE, which is National Institute of Education, NTU. Her interest areas include assessment literacy, assessment design, classroom assessment, and language assessment. Born and raised in Singapore, Rong Chan has benefited from Singapore's bilingual education. She is hence particularly interested in promoting language education. Locally, she is a member of the Committee to Promote Chinese Language Learning and the National Translation Committee. Outside of academia, Rong Chan is passionate about creative writing and has won awards for her contemporary Chinese poetry. In her talk this afternoon, Ms. Lin will explain if and how we are in the deep end, using AI to develop student feedback literacy. Please welcome Ms. Lin Rong Chan.
Thank you, Bing Sun. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Oh, I love the energy. So the title of my presentation is, Are We in the Deep End? Using AI to develop student feedback literacy. You know, honestly, when I crafted this title, right, I was pretty pleased with myself. I thought this is a very good title. But then, subsequently, you know, after some hearty refreshments, right, that the organizer has provided for us, I started to wonder whether I will end up putting you all to deep sleep. So in any case, I'm going to give this my best shot. So we're going to talk about how to use AI to develop student feedback literacy. So first, I will define the key terms, and then subsequently, we will explore how we can potentially use AI to develop student feedback literacy. And then I will pan out to put forth this deep approach to language education. And then finally, I will discuss, so what is the role of humans in all of this? So first, the key terms. So, what exactly is artificial intelligence? Even though there is no universal agreement on what AI actually is, I'm going to adhere to this definition that we see here. AI will be defined as computing systems that are able to engage in human-like processes, such as learning, adapting, synthesizing, self-correction, and use of data for complex processing tools based on the two scholars. So here, the keyword here I like to highlight is human-like, which means AI is fundamentally not human. So what is generative AI then? I decided to be cheeky, so I turned to ChatGPT. I mean, it is essentially a generative AI tool, right? So I asked it to define itself. So to define what generative AI is, so it gave me a pretty decent and reasonable definition, which is AI actually has the power to create new content which can manifest itself in various forms, be it text, images, music, and more. And of course, it relies on training data, and the quality of the training data would therefore be very important because it will impact the output, the quality of the output. So we will talk more about this later. So then what exactly is feedback? If we can see feedback as information provided by an agent. So this agent, in this context of today's presentation, can be a generative AI tool. So it will provide information, feedback is information provided by an agent regarding aspects of one's performance or understanding. If we adopt a learner-centered approach to defining feedback, then feedback can be processes where learners make use of performance-relevant information to promote their learning. So here, the learners, the humans, need to take action on the feedback instead of sitting there and passively waiting for feedback, to be served on their plate. So here, there's learner involvement, because fundamentally, the purpose of feedback is to reduce the discrepancies between current understanding and the desired goal, right? So we are trying to close the gap, in other words, based on what Hattie and Timberly has reminded us. So the learners need to take action. So this brings us to the next point. What is student feedback literacy? Typically, we focus a lot on what teachers need to do. What is teacher assessment literacy, teachers feedback literacy? However, if we are thinking from the learning perspective, we cannot learn on behalf of our students. So student feedback literacy, as defined by Cullis and Baum, if they have well-developed feedback literacy, they appreciate their own active role in the processes. And then they are continuously developing capacities in making sound judgment about their work, academic work, and manage affect in positive ways. So, if we zoom in on the 4 features that the 2 scholars have put forth, it's quite thought-provoking, because when I was looking at how they describe appreciation of feedback, the scholars recognize, feedback literate students should recognize that feedback information comes in various forms and from various sources. In today's context, in the context of our presentation, the feedback can be a generative AI tool, for example, ChatGPT. And then they are able to use technology to assess, store, and revisit feedback. So this is very apt, for our presentation today. And if we zoom in on the feature of managing affect, so students should be able to maintain emotional equilibrium and avoid defensiveness when receiving critical feedback. So in some contexts, our learners, our students may feel very vulnerable, and they may find it very intimidating to receive feedback from a person of higher authority, or sometimes from a peer, right? They will feel, in our local terms, they will feel very paiseh, very embarrassed, right? So to receive feedback from a human and perhaps be intimidated. So in this context, perhaps ChatGPT or whatever generative AI tool, there are many other platforms around, could be one form of source where they can see it in a more objective manner and not be overly defensive. So how then can we use AI to develop student feedback literacy? So I will be drawing on related literature and relating my discussion to the 3 phases: feed up, feed back, and feed forward. So in the following slides, right, I'll be using ChatGPT to illustrate. Having said that, I'm not promoting or privileging any AI tool. I'm just using, in this context, ChatGPT to illustrate the principles underpinning meaningful and sound practices. So at the feed-up stage, this is when teachers need to clarify their goals, the goals and expectations, perhaps to consider using generative AI tool to generate rubrics and accompanying exemplars to deepen students' understanding. Because otherwise, assessment will be taking place in a black box, right? Where we do not know what teachers are looking for, what quality work entail. Yeah, so at this stage, perhaps this is something we can do. So I tried it out. So I asked ChatGPT to generate an analytic rubric for narrative writing based on the prompts that I gave it. So by analytic rubric, it means a rubric that has multiple criteria so that the user, the rater, whoever is using it, can be student, can be teacher, can be any external party, will make a judgment of the quality of the work for each and every criterion. This is in contrast to holistic rubric, where the teachers just give an overall impressionistic judgment. Say, for example, I look at this product. I say, oh, this is A quality, B quality, C quality. It's a very overall thing. However, analytic rubric is more fine-grained because there are different criteria being specified, and we need to make sub-judgment or give sub-scores if there are any. So in the context of this rubric, this analytic rubric has 3 criteria: content, expression, and organization. So by giving analytic rubric, we can provide learners with more useful diagnostic information, because sometimes some may score high on content, low on organization, etc. So of course, you may want to make some refinements based on whatever rubric it has generated. And then we can even ask ChatGPT to generate an accompanying exemplar. Sometimes as teachers, we may not have, this might be the first time we are implementing a task, right, on assessment, and we may not have exemplars from previous cohorts. So at this juncture, we can ask ChatGPT to generate an accompanying exemplar. So that's what I asked ChatGPT to do, and the title I gave to the essay is A Misunderstanding. So they're supposed to write, it wrote an essay for me on a misunderstanding, directive writing, right? And then, having this is not enough, so I asked ChatGPT, hey, can you provide feedback on the exemplar based on the analytic rubric that you gave me? So it's like giving feedback, right? And then, so it gave me, wow, very lengthy response. Oh, the content, blah, 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 organization, blah, 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 and then the expression. So it kind of like gave feedback on the exemplar based on the rubric. And then I'm thinking, some learners, they might be very overwhelmed if the feedback is given in a language that is not their dominant language. Yeah, it's like, if I were a student and I'm already not good in Mandarin, when I see a lot of words in Mandarin, right, Chinese characters, I may chua deal, right? It's like, in our dialect, it's like, I may be taken aback, or I may be intimidated. What is happening here? I may be more overwhelmed than ever. So I asked ChatGPT to translate the feedback. So it actually did quite a decent job for me in translating the feedback. So if the feedback is provided in a language that learners are comfortable with, so they maybe then for a start they can comprehend. I think comprehending is so important, right? They can comprehend the feedback and hopefully perhaps translate to some action and facilitate the subsequent uptake of the feedback. So of course, beyond written forms, we can also explore other tools like text-to-speech. Some learners, maybe reading is too much for them. They prefer to hear something. So we can also explore, text-to-speech technology where the feedback or the essay, whatever, is being read out to them. And then maybe it will enhance their understanding as well, instead of being overwhelmed by the written form. So this could be useful for learners with diverse needs to support their learning, because essentially we need to think from the learner's perspective. So at the feed-up stage, it's not just us asking whatever tool to do all these things for us, but fundamentally, it is important to engage students in discussing the rubric and the exemplars. So they can look at the exemplars, they can relate it to the rubric, see it from different lenses, multiple perspectives in the classroom context. To challenge ideas, debate ideas, or raise questions, right? So this is when we can adopt a socio-cultural approach, for them to see the issues from different perspectives. And all this is preparatory work that a teacher could perhaps do to enhance learning. So on the student end, at the feed-up stage, students could consider seeking feedback from AI platforms and to obtain diagnostic information on their work. It could be a draft based on the rubric. So this is actually similar to me asking a peer to critique my essay, right? Just that in this context, I'm turning to the machine. And then if there's a need, if they're skeptical about whatever output they receive, or if they're still confused, they can actually further discuss and clarify with teacher and peers. And at a feed-forward stage, if we only focus on feed-up and feedback, our job is not done. Because students need to act on the feedback, the feed-forward, for us to have greater clarity whether the learners has demonstrated uptake, has really learned. They need to act on the feedback by refining their work based on whatever feedback they have received, right? And applying the feedback to the next related work. Because ultimately, all these skills should be transferable across tasks, across contexts. So the students can clarify what feedback has been acted upon, and explain the actions taken or refinements made for us to really understand their thought processes and learning processes. We could even ask them to submit a draft and a refined version, right? Based on whatever machine that they use, keep a paper trail. And then if enacted well, technically speaking, hopefully, we would want to see that the revised version is of higher quality than the draft. And then a student can do a first cut, first round of refinement before submitting to the teacher for subsequent grading or subsequent feedback. So this could be a possible approach. So what is the role of humans then? Something that I kind of alluded to earlier. So to even prompt whatever tool to develop a rubric suitable for use, strong subject knowledge and understanding of the syllabus and learning objectives are crucial because a lot of things are context dependent. So I need to you may have to prompt it several times and then fit in, for this unit, what are we learning? Are we learning the 5W1H? Whatever we are learning, right? So there's a need, it requires a strong subject disciplinary knowledge. And then we also have to exercise judgment, whether the content created is age, level, context appropriate. The first essay I asked ChatGPT to generate is too chim. It's very chim and difficult, very loaded with vocabulary. That might be very difficult for the learners. And then the first essay, the initial plot, when I read it, I was thinking, okay, this is a good essay, but it might not resonate with our local students, the plot. So I have to simplify the language, I have to think about the context, the story, whether it makes sense to the learners. So the content would require further refinements. Like, Phillips, how many runs did you have, right? 21 iterations, right? Something similar. We have to exercise our judgment. So eventually, as human, the teacher would have to pause, look at whatever students has submitted to modify instruction and further curate the classroom activities to further support learning. So human is actually very important. We would have to think about teaching and learning at a system level to ensure the soundness and coherence of the various processes, including the actions that needs to be taken, be it by the teacher or by the learner, after using AI. So this is a coherent system. It's not just one isolated use, of that AI tool. And so this requires a deep understanding of our respective contexts. So essentially, we also need to think about the role of other learners. We are not learning to just deal with machine, but for language use, right, we are interacting with real people in real time, typically. So we have to consider the role of other learners in a socio-cultural, guided by a social-cultural theory, right, learning theory, and how the class can co-construct knowledge and learn together as a community. So that was why previously I highlighted that there's a need to discuss the exemplars and the rubrics as a class. So the human touch needs to be there. So are we in the deep end? This is the acronym I'm quite pleased with. So first D, disciplinary learning. E, empowerment of learners. They should become smarter, right? Not become more passive after using AI. And an ethical approach and paradigm shift. So let me explicate this. I'm putting forth a list of questions which I think we should perhaps consider in our enactment. So what does it mean to master a language? What does effective use of language entail? Are we over-privileging writing? Are all our assessment tasks more inclined towards written pieces of work? In real world, we do synthesize different language skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing. So we could ask students to listen to something and then talk about it, right? Be it a summary or an oral presentation. Or are they learning to read various sources and then write, synthesize the viewpoints, put forth their own views, and then do an oral presentation about it? So the field has also moved from assessing independent skills, reading, speaking, listening, whatever, to integration of language skills. So, because ultimately we hope our learners can use the target language, be it Mandarin, other mother tongue or English or foreign language, in authentic scenarios. And with an increasing emphasis in semiotic modes in communication, what are the affordances and limitations of using multimodal AI to support language learning, teaching, and assessment? The second one, empowerment of learners. It will be interesting to see what is the nature of interaction between the teacher, the students, and the platform. Are our students actively engaged in the process? Are we creating opportunities as teachers for them to be actively engaged in the process and not just regurgitating or outsourcing thinking and writing to AI tools? So are they able to evaluate the quality of the output generated by AI? So this requires higher order critical thinking. So how are we essentially helping learners achieve the learning outcomes? And to what extent are we empowering and really elevating learners through the use of AI? So third, ethical approach. I think minimally we have to find out what are the terms and conditions of using that platform. What is the user age limit for the AI platform? Sometimes my memory may fail me, but you can help double check. So the last I checked, I think for OpenAI, ChatGPT, OpenAI, right? I believe you need to be at least 13 years old to use the platform. If you are under 18 or something, you need to have parental or guardian consent. Something along the line, huh? Please double check also. Yeah, so every platform will have some terms of use. So what is the user age limit? And are learners declaring the use of AI appropriately? Are learners using AI in a meaningful and responsible manner? So considering the diversity in learner profile, what are the measures put in to ensure equity in learning? I think this is something, because I come from a less privileged background, so this is something that I think is really important. Are students given equal opportunities to learn? Sometimes they may not even have the basic digital literacy or the equipment to learn. So now that AI is here, we are living in this era, so will those from less privileged background be further disadvantaged and widen whatever existing gap there is, right? I think this is something we have to pay attention to. So a paradigm shift. It will be interesting to do a studies on this. How do learners perceive the use of AI? How do teachers perceive the use of AI? Is there any tension between these two groups of stakeholders? How do we reconcile this tension? Maybe student thinks, whoa, AI, very good. I can use it. But teacher was like, no, you cannot do this. Or it could be vice versa. So how do we collaborate with AI in a meaningful manner? Perhaps for a start, we can shift from adopting a very punitive, or you need to be punished, this and that. We move from a punitive and resistant approach towards a more healthier, collaborative attitude. So what is the role of humans? I kind of mentioned this earlier. In conclusion, I narrowed down to 2 human attributes that I think is important. Judgment. First, judgment as consumers of whatever information, be it through AI or not, right? So we have to exercise a certain level of judgment regarding the accuracy. And also empathy. I think this is a core human attribute that cannot be replaced by machines. Having said that, a colleague pointed me to this article. So the scholars were comparing physician and AI chatbot responses to patients' questions posted on a public social media platform. So the chatbot responses were rated significantly more empathetic than physician responses. The proportion of the responses rated empathetic or very empathetic was higher for chatbot than for physician. I was totally shocked and speechless. What does this mean for us? So will we be living in an era, in a future where we prefer to talk to machines rather than to one another, right? So this is quite horrifying. Then again, back to the point I was saying about the quality of the data, right? If the data is, I'm thinking, if the data, training data is rich in empathetic expressions, for example, or maybe it shows like very rich social pragmatic competencies, I am not surprised by this finding. So what is the role of humans? Perhaps the answer is we need to learn to be more human in a positive way, in a positive way. While also maximizing efficiency through meaningful partnership with AI to prevent burnout. I mean, we are humans, we will feel tired, we will feel frustrated. So how do we partner with AI in a meaningful fashion and getting the work done? So, returning to the title of my presentation, are we in the deep end? Even though we are thrown in a new and difficult situation, I would like to believe all is not lost. I think AI has stimulated and prompted us to uncover and rediscover our unique human attributes. How we can further leverage our attributes to bring about meaningful outcomes. So with that, thank you for giving me this opportunity to indulge in a deep conversation on AI, language, and humanity. So thank you so much. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rongchen.